Hello! Today we are going to speak a little bit about the weighted vest. What it is, what it does, maybe who should use it, who maybe shouldn't use it, why I'm not currently using one, and what I use instead. My name is June Melia. I have been working as a certified personal trainer for 25 years, and I love talking about all things health and fitness, especially as I'm 48 and starting to get into that other phase of life. So, what is a weighted vest? So I actually have mine here because I actually did buy one. Okay, so this is a weighted vest, and you just put it over you, like a vest, and you strap it on, and you can get them in all different sizes. I think this one was 8 pounds, so this is it. And you may have noticed while you're out and about that there are some women who are wearing a weighted vest when they're out for walks or when they're at the gym or whatever it is. So there's a bunch of benefits to wearing a weighted vest. The added weight obviously will improve your strength. So people report having better leg strength when they're wearing a weighted vest. Also better cardio fitness wearing a weighted vest. Increase in muscle mass, which is great. So muscle mass, which can also relate to improved bone density. So women heading into perimenopause and in menopause tend to lose a lot of bone density, and so this is great, right? It's really helpful to wear a weighted vest because it helps with your bone density, and those are all great benefits, right? They're great. No one can say those are not great benefits. Now, I am going to say that there are negatives to wearing a weighted vest. So one negative is that it alters your posture. So if you're wearing a weighted vest, and they can come, they can start maybe around like 5 pounds or 3 to 5 pounds, but you can get a weighted vest that goes up to like 50 pounds, maybe more. A very, very heavy weighted vest that's a lot of, mostly women, some men, mostly women like to wear. So when you have all of that on your shoulders, it can alter your posture, right? Unless you're being very aware of how you're sitting and standing, you can start to this, the straps can sort of push into your shoulders, and it's gonna, when you start getting tired, your posture is going to change, which puts a lot of stress on your various parts of your back. So that's one negative. It can compress your spinal column, right? So we don't want our spinal column to be stressed or compressed like this, where we're adding all of this weight on our shoulders primarily, and then our spine is having to cope with all of that. So if you have some real spinal or back issues, you would want to talk with your doctor for sure before starting to wear a weighted vest. And then the reason why I don't wear a weighted vest right now, maybe someday I will wear a weighted vest, but right now I am not wearing my weighted vest because it puts a lot of pressure on your pelvic floor. So your pelvic floor muscles are the very lower part of your pelvis, and they create like a hammock. And if they are stressed, one way you know that these muscles are stressed is if you do any kind of strenuous exercise, if you sneeze or you cough and you leak when you do those things, your pelvic floor may not be strong enough for a weighted vest. And I last year was diagnosed with a prolapse. So a minor prolapse, but a prolapse nonetheless, and I rehabbed it. And I am doing much better, but several months ago I got myself a weighted vest and it didn't feel right. I could totally tell that it was stressing out my pelvic floor. Some of the symptoms were flaring back up again, the symptoms that I worked really, really hard to fix. My weighted vest is 8 pounds, so it's not super heavy, but it's moderately a little bit heavy, maybe. And so I decided to forego the weighted vest because to me, it was not worth the strain or the worry that I was doing damage to my pelvic floor muscles. And so I let it go, which is a little disappointing because, you always want to feel like you're strong enough to do anything. But if you leak when you sneeze, or you feel like you have to really like focus on, if you cross your legs when you're sneezing or coughing because you think you're gonna leak, or if you go for a jog or you go on a trampoline or whatever and you leak, I would say that you may not be ready to wear a weighted vest. And as someone who has worked in fitness for 25 years, I know a lot of women have this problem with leakage when they're exercising. I would say it's of women who've had children, it's probably at least 50% that will mention that they can't do certain things like a jump rope or whatever, those kinds of impact exercises because they leak. So if you want to wear a weighted vest but you leak, then I would recommend that you do not use the weighted vest. Now, as disappointing as that is, because you want to be doing especially if you like being up to date on all of the fitness stuff, if I don't do this when if I'm out for a walk outside, but I usually mix running in with my walking, and I wouldn't do this if I was outside running. But if I'm on the treadmill in my studio, I will grab hand weights and I will use those on if I'm doing any kind of walking. And what I feel is, if you're using hand weights, and this is so 1980s, but I don't care. It's like Jane Fonda time here, Thigh Master-ish times. But if you have hand weights that are 1 pound, 2 pound, 3 pound, 5 pounds, whatever you feel is comfortable, and you can maintain good posture, and you are like, okay, I'm going to do 20, 30, 40 minutes of intervals, walking hilly intervals. The hand weights, they really, because when you're walking, you're pulling, when you have the hand weights, you definitely use a lot more of your upper body. And it takes the pressure out of my pelvis, my pelvic floor muscles in my back, the compression in my back. And it feels really good to have the hand weights. Now, I have read that if you use walking poles, that you increase your calorie expenditure by 50%. Now, don't quote me on that. I heard that somewhere and I haven't looked it up. I'm not sure that's true, but I will say that when I use my hand weights, and I use anywhere from 2, 3, 5 pounds, depending on how I'm feeling and how long I'm walking, I feel really good. I feel like my upper back gets strengthened. I feel like my shoulders get strengthened. And this, because if you're doing this motion and you're squeezing your upper back, which I find to be so much more beneficial for my posture than compressing my spine with a weighted vest. So that's what I do. And, maybe I would do that outside, or, but I don't, because I don't, when I go outside, I tend to do more running in intervals. So I don't like having anything in my hands when I'm doing that. But if I'm in my studio and I want to get some cardio in, and I really like the feeling of having light weights in my hands, because as I said, it strengthens your whole upper back, and it gives a little more oomph to your upper body, which is amazing. So that's what I do instead. I use hand weights. As 1984, that is, I find that it feels really good, and it definitely benefits my posture and keep making sure that I have more of an athletic biomechanics while I am walking or hilly, you're more going, and I love that feeling. So that's what I do instead. Now, I don't know the studies on if that's better or whatever, but this is my own experience. And I think that counts for something. So if you and maybe eventually you use a weighted vest, but you just want to make sure that your core is strong enough and that you're not straining those muscles, because once you go too far straining those pelvic floor muscles, it's really hard to come back from that, which I didn't do. Luckily, I got to repair mine, and I want to keep them that way. So that's it. That's all I have to say about that and my weighted vest. And I am going to leave it there. So if you have any suggestions, if you love your weighted vest, if you have found that the weighted vest doesn't work for you and you found something else that works instead, you can post those comments below. I would love hearing about your suggestions. Maybe you have another great idea for how to utilize something without it being the weighted vest that sort of amps up your exercise, your workouts. But that is it for me today. Please like and subscribe if you would like more content. If you have a question that you would love a personal trainer to answer, you can also post that below, and I will answer it in a video. Wouldn't that be fun? Okay, I will talk to you later. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon. Bye.